The buzz of my phone vibrated in my pocket, pulling my attention away from the electric atmosphere of Court Philippe Chatrier. Rafael Nadal was serving for the championship, the crowd a roaring tide of anticipation around me. My name is Jacob Harrison, and at 38 years old, I had just been unceremoniously dismissed from my job via text message, while seated courtside at the French Open final in Paris. The message flashed from Riley Denton, my superior at Gravura Group, a Chicago-based technology consulting firm. I had dedicated 6 years of my professional life to this company, serving as Senior Strategic Director. 6 years spent meticulously cultivating client relationships, securing lucrative contracts, and generating the substantial revenue that sustained our European division's profitability. 6 years of sacrificing precious family time, missing countless dinners to accommodate late-night calls with demanding executives in London and Frankfurt. 6 years of unwavering allegiance to a corporation that had just unceremoniously discarded me, much like a used serviette. I stared at the glowing screen for a fleeting 10 seconds. Around me, the stadium erupted as Nadal claimed the point, but the joyous cacophony felt distant, muffled, as if I were underwater. Then, a second text appeared, stark and final: "You're fired. Clear out your desk by Monday." No phone call, no formal meeting, no semblance of an explanation. Just a cowardly, impersonal termination, delivered while I was on what should have been a well-deserved celebratory excursion. This Parisian journey was my reward for securing the largest client contract in the company's history 8 months prior. Nexera Labs had inked a 3-year agreement, valued at a substantial $12 million in consulting fees. Riley himself had personally presented me with the coveted Roland Garros ticket package at our quarterly assembly, clasping my hand firmly in front of the entire team and lauding me as the future of international business development. Now, he was communicating my dismissal with the casual indifference of a teenager ending a relationship. The gentleman beside me in the exclusive seating section shifted, casting a sidelong glance in my direction. He appeared older, perhaps in his mid-50s, adorned with an expensive timepiece and an air of quiet self-possession that suggested familiarity with prestigious environments. His face seemed vaguely familiar, yet I couldn't immediately pinpoint where I had encountered him before. "Everything all right?" he inquired softly, his accent unmistakably British. I scrutinized him more closely. Recognition hit me with the force of an icy wave. Gerard Bellamy, the chief executive officer of Lunara Ventures, our primary rival in the competitive European technology consulting sector. We had exchanged pleasantries at a conference in Amsterdam 2 years prior, and I remembered him distinctly. His firm had been persistently attempting to lure away our clientele for nearly a decade. "Just work," I mumbled, sliding my phone back into my pocket, the words feeling inadequate. But an unsettling intuition in my gut whispered that this moment was about to transcend a mere termination. It was on the cusp of becoming profoundly more consequential. Riley Denton had just committed the most egregious error of his professional career, and he was utterly oblivious to it. The timing, in retrospect, was nothing short of poetic. I had meticulously constructed Gravura Group's European operations from their nascent beginnings. 6 years ago, when I first joined, we possessed 0 international clients and lacked any presence beyond the confines of the Chicago metropolitan area. Riley had specifically engaged me to rectify this, dangling enticing promises of equity stakes and partnership prospects that, frustratingly, never materialized. My professional background lay in enterprise software implementation, yet I possessed a natural aptitude for comprehending the nuanced operational differences between European and American businesses. I devoted 2 years to mastering German and French, undertaking incessant travel and forging robust connections with technology executives across a dozen countries. The impressive outcomes spoke for themselves. In 6 years, I had secured 43 significant clients, representing a cumulative contract value of $78 million. Our European division now accounted for a substantial 37% of Gravura Group's overall revenue. Yet, Riley had perpetually viewed my accomplishments with an underlying sense of apprehension and resentment. He was the archetypal executive who shamelessly claimed credit for every triumph, while meticulously distancing himself from any setback. When Nexera Labs initially rejected our proposal 18 months ago, Riley publicly attributed the failure to my alleged cultural misunderstanding of their requirements. When I subsequently managed to re-engage them with a revised strategy, he arrogantly informed the board that his leadership was the decisive factor. The warning signals had been accumulating for months. Riley gradually ceased including me in senior leadership gatherings. He appointed his nephew, Trevor Denton, as Assistant Director of European Relations without bothering to consult me. Trevor possessed absolutely no international experience and was fluent only in English, but the familial connection evidently trumped all other qualifications. 3 weeks ago, I made the unsettling discovery that Riley had been directly handling client calls that should have, by all means, been routed through me. When I confronted him about this blatant circumvention, he dismissively claimed he was streamlining communications and advised me not to concern myself with matters above my pay grade. My wife, Catherine, had astutely observed the shift in my demeanor. "He's setting you up for something," she sagely remarked after I recounted the distressing situation with Trevor. "Men like that don't bring in family unless they're planning to oust someone." I had, regrettably, dismissed her insightful concerns. After 6 years of consistently generating substantial revenue and meticulously cultivating the European business, I foolishly believed my position was unassailable. I possessed client relationships that would be virtually impossible to swiftly replicate. I held invaluable institutional knowledge regarding European markets that Riley desperately needed. I was gravely mistaken. What I hadn't realized was that Trevor had been systematically working to undermine my hard-won client relationships. He had artfully convinced Riley that I was going native, prioritizing European client interests over the company's financial gains. He suggested that my frequent international travel was excessive and that the majority of my responsibilities could be efficiently handled remotely by someone based in Chicago. The Roland Garros trip, far from being a well-deserved acknowledgement of my achievements, was, it seemed, Riley's cunning ploy to get me out of the country while they orchestrated my termination. But Riley had made one colossal miscalculation. He had fired me while I was seated directly beside the one individual who possessed the power to transform his strategic maneuver into a catastrophic business blunder. I retrieved my phone once more, rereading Riley's offensive messages. The words felt even more contemptible upon a second perusal. "Pathetic employees like you don't deserve success." The sheer audacity of his arrogance was breathtaking. Gerard Bellamy, though still engrossed in the tennis match, I could sense his attention had subtly shifted in my direction. He was the type of astute executive who perceived every detail, and my reaction to those incendiary text messages had not been sufficiently discreet. The full, crushing weight of what had just transpired began to settle upon me. Riley hadn't merely terminated my employment, he had publicly humiliated me. The timing was meticulously calculated to inflict maximum damage. Firing me while I was in Paris meant I was utterly unable to defend myself, to gather crucial documents, or to communicate with clients or colleagues before the inevitable news disseminated throughout the office. However, as I sat there, observing Nadal's jubilant celebration, something profound stirred within me. The initial wave of shock and profound hurt gradually morphed into a colder, more resolute determination. Riley had utterly misjudged me. I began to reflect on my extensive client relationships. Nexera Labs had explicitly requested that I remain their primary point of contact throughout the duration of our contract. Klaus Weber, from Kristen Global, had confided in me just the previous month that he considered me truly indispensable. Marie Dubois, at Hollowgate Systems, had been actively advocating for a contract extension precisely because she placed immense trust in my oversight of their implementation. These weren't merely transactional business associations. They were genuine partnerships, meticulously forged over 6 years of unwavering trust, proven competence, and a deep understanding of cultural nuances. Riley, in his naive arrogance, seemed to believe he could simply appropriate them by dismissing me and installing his utterly unqualified nephew. He was about to receive a harsh lesson. I cast another glance at Gerard Bellamy. Lunara Ventures had been striving to penetrate the American consulting market for many years, but they consistently lacked the established client connections and crucial cultural acumen required to effectively compete with entrenched firms like Gravura Group. What if, I mused, they suddenly gained access to both? The crowd began to disperse as the trophy presentation concluded. Gerard rose, stretching languidly, then met my gaze directly. "Forgive me for being presumptuous," he began, his voice calm, "but you appear to be a man who has just received some profoundly unwelcome news." In that pivotal moment, I made a decision that would irrevocably alter the course of everything. "Actually," I countered, rising to my feet and extending my hand, "I believe I just received the finest news of my entire career. I'm Jacob Harrison, formerly of Gravura Group." He offered a faint smile, shaking my hand firmly. Gerard Bellamy, Lunara Ventures, he responded, a glint in his eye. And I suspect that, formally, is about to become profoundly significant. I retrieved my phone and presented him with Riley's dismissive messages. Gerard read them twice, his expression growing progressively more intrigued with each word. "Well," he finally remarked, a subtle smirk playing on his lips, "this is indeed quite opportune timing. Would you be inclined to continue this discussion over dinner? I know an excellent restaurant not far from the Louvre." The game, it seemed, had just begun, and Riley remained blissfully unaware that he was on the precipice of losing everything. By Sunday evening, I was back in Chicago, holding a job offer from Lunara Ventures that far surpassed my wildest expectations. Gerard had made it unequivocally clear that he desired me to spearhead their ambitious new American expansion, offering a 30% salary increase and substantial equity stakes, precisely the promises Riley had so casually made but never delivered. Monday morning dawned under a shroud of gray skies, the air possessing a biting chill that penetrated even the thickest jacket. I entered the Gravura Group offices, knowing with absolute certainty that this would be my final visit. Riley was already waiting in the conference room, flanked by Trevor and our Human Resources Director, Patricia Wells. "Jacob," Riley greeted me as I entered, his tone artificially buoyant. "How was Paris?" "Educational," I replied dryly, settling into a chair opposite him. Patricia silently slid a termination packet across the polished table. It contained the standard severance package, non-compete agreements, and instructions for the return of company property. Nothing particularly generous, but nothing overtly illegal either. "I believe you'll find everything in order," Riley stated, a smug satisfaction in his voice. "We've decided to restructure the European division under Trevor's capable leadership. Your services are, regrettably, no longer required." Trevor sat there, a self-satisfied smirk plastered across his face, as if he had just claimed a grand prize. He was a mere 26 years old, possessed an MBA from a second-tier institution, and had precisely zero international business acumen. "What about my clients?" I inquired, my voice calm. "Their company clients, you mean," Riley corrected me dismissively. "Trevor will be competently handling all European relationships going forward." I signed the paperwork without offering any argument. Riley appeared visibly taken aback by my compliance. "I must admit, Jacob, I anticipated more resistance from you," he remarked, a hint of surprise in his tone. "This is rather refreshing." "No point in fighting the inevitable," I replied, rising to my feet and extending my hand to him. "I wish you the very best with the European market." What Riley remained blissfully unaware of was that I had spent Sunday afternoon making a flurry of phone calls. Not to clients yet, that would come later. But I had contacted my astute lawyer, meticulously reviewed my employment agreements, and confirmed that my non-compete clause applied only to direct competitors situated within the Chicago metropolitan area. Lunara Ventures, crucially, was headquartered in London. I calmly cleared out my desk, acutely aware of Trevor watching me from across the office. He made a point of ostentatiously sitting at my former desk, loudly pontificating on European strategy to anyone within earshot. The performance was utterly pathetic, but I allowed him his moment of misguided triumph. By Tuesday morning, the genuine repercussions began to manifest. Klaus Weber from Kristen Global initiated a call to the main office, requesting to speak with me regarding a contract modification. Patricia, following protocol, transferred him to Trevor, who spent a frustrating 15 minutes attempting to explain why he was now Klaus's designated primary contact. Klaus, exasperated, promptly hung up and immediately dialed my personal cell phone. "Jacob, what on earth is happening at your company?" he demanded. "This young man knows absolutely nothing about our agreement." "There have been some changes in management," I calmly informed him. "I can't discuss specifics right now, but I'll be in touch very soon." Similar frantic calls poured in from 3 other prominent clients that week. Marie Dubois, in particular, was refreshingly direct. "If you are no longer with Gravura Group, we need to discuss our contract immediately," she declared. Riley began to descend into a full-blown panic by Thursday. He called my cell phone no less than 6 times, leaving increasingly desperate voicemails filled with vague apologies about misunderstandings and rash decisions. Trevor, it appeared, had somehow managed to alienate 2 key clients and utterly botch a critical conference call with a potentially lucrative new account. The breaking point arrived on Friday morning, when Nexra Labs dispatched a formal letter requesting the immediate termination of their $12 million contract, citing material changes in account management. Riley materialized at my apartment that very evening. "This is utterly ridiculous, Jacob," he fumed, his face contorted in anger. "You're deliberately destroying relationships out of spite." "I'm not destroying anything," I calmly countered, my voice devoid of emotion. "I'm simply not available to extricate you from your nephew's glaring incompetence." "What do you want?" he stammered, desperation creeping into his tone. "More money. A better title." "I desire nothing from you, Riley," I stated unequivocally. "You made your definitive choice in Paris." He departed, looking utterly defeated, like a man who had just fully grasped the colossal magnitude of his error. But it was far too late. The damage was irretrievable, and I was merely just beginning. Saturday morning brought an unexpected call from Patricia Wells. She sounded utterly exhausted. "Jacob," she began, her voice lowered, "I need to ask you something in strict confidence. Did you have any prior knowledge of Trevor's hiring before it was officially announced?" "No," I replied, surprised. "Why?" "Because I've been meticulously reviewing the paperwork," she explained, "and some critical details simply don't align. Riley backdated Trevor's employment to 3 months ago, but his actual first day was only 2 weeks ago. And his salary is inexplicably higher than yours was." This was entirely new information to me. I had merely assumed Trevor's hiring was a straightforward case of nepotism, but Patricia's words suggested something far more calculated and insidious. "What else did you uncover?" I pressed. "Riley has been intercepting your client emails for the past 6 weeks, she revealed. He set up a forwarding rule that meticulously copied everything to his personal account. And he's been disseminating rumors that you were planning to resign anyway." The complete picture began to crystallize with chilling clarity. Riley hadn't fired me on an impulsive whim. He had been meticulously planning this for months, systematically undermining my position while simultaneously grooming Trevor to assume my responsibilities. The Paris trip was not a reward. It was a conveniently orchestrated maneuver to get me out of the country while he executed his transition. Patricia continued, her voice grim. "There's more. Riley has been secretly negotiating with a consulting firm in Berlin, discussing the potential acquisition of our entire European client list. He assured them that you were unreliable and that the company required professional management of its international relationships." Now, I fully understood. Riley wasn't merely replacing me with his nephew. He was cynically planning to sell the entire European division to a German firm, pocketing a substantial profit while arrogantly claiming credit for the thriving business I had painstakingly built from the ground up. "When is this supposed to transpire?" I asked, my voice tight. "The preliminary agreement was signed 2 weeks ago," she informed me. "The full transfer is slated for next month." Riley had played his hand with what he believed was perfect precision. Fire me, install Trevor as a temporary placeholder, then offload the entire operation to the German firm for an immense profit. Trevor would likely receive a bonus and a glowing recommendation letter, while Riley would be hailed as a strategic genius who had successfully monetized the European expansion. There was, however, one glaring flaw in his meticulously crafted scheme: the clients. European business culture places an immense premium on personal relationships and continuity. Klaus Weber was not about to accept some random German consulting firm simply because Riley Denton deemed it a good idea. Marie Dubois would terminate her contract without hesitation rather than work with unfamiliar individuals. The Norwegian pharmaceutical company, currently engaged in negotiations for a significant new deal, would undoubtedly walk away immediately. Riley had meticulously calculated the financial valuation of the client contracts, but he had utterly failed to grasp what truly made those relationships valuable in the first place. I immediately called Gerard Bellamy in London. "Gerard," I began, my voice urgent, "I need to accelerate our timeline. Something significant is unfolding with Gravura Group's European operations." "What kind of something?" he inquired. I succinctly explained Riley's treacherous plan to divest the European division to a German firm. Gerard remained silent for a prolonged moment. "That's actually quite perfect for us," he finally stated, a discernible satisfaction in his voice. "If he's planning to sell, It signifies he's already surrendered the notion of personally managing those relationships. And if the clients are discontent with the transition, they will undoubtedly be actively seeking alternatives. Precisely, I affirmed. How quickly can you commence? He asked. I can be in London by Wednesday, I confirmed. Excellent, Gerard responded. I'll instruct our legal team to draft your employment agreement immediately. And Jacob? Yes. Start compiling a comprehensive list of every client relationship you believe you can successfully transfer, he instructed. We are going to transform Riley's ill-conceived master plan into the most significant boon our company has ever received. Riley, in his arrogant delusion, believed he was engaged in a sophisticated game of chess, yet he had just inexplicably handed his opponent every single piece on the board. I flew to London on Tuesday night and dedicated Wednesday morning to Gerard's office, finalizing my employment agreement. The terms were even more favorable than I had dared to anticipate. Director of American Operations, a substantial equity stake, and complete autonomy over all client relationships. Gerard had clearly done his research. Lunara Ventures had been striving to penetrate the American market for 3 arduous years, but they consistently lacked the crucial client connections and cultural insight to effectively compete with the established firms. Hiring me, he recognized, instantly resolved both critical challenges. Your timing is truly remarkable, Gerard commented as we meticulously reviewed the contract. We've been meticulously building our American infrastructure for months, but we desperately needed someone who possessed a profound understanding of both markets. By Thursday, I was already making calls. Klaus Weber was my first contact. I explained that I had joined Lunara Ventures and would be continuing to oversee his technology implementation from our London office. This is far superior, Klaus declared, evident relief in his voice. Lunara Ventures possesses an impeccable reputation in Europe. When can we proceed with the contract transfer? I'll have our legal team reach out to you next week, I assured him. Marie Dubois was equally receptive. She had been deeply frustrated by Trevor's abysmal lack of knowledge and was palpably relieved to learn that I would continue managing her account. Finally, someone who genuinely comprehends our business, she exclaimed. Send me the transfer documents immediately. The Norwegian pharmaceutical company, while more cautious, agreed to schedule a meeting. The potential $12 million contract that Riley had so foolishly believed he was offloading to the German firm was, in reality, still very much available. By Friday, I had successfully confirmed transfer agreements with 6 major clients, collectively representing an astounding $42 million in contracted revenue. 3 additional clients expressed interest in scheduling meetings to discuss relocating their accounts. Riley, in his oblivious ignorance, had no inkling of the seismic shifts occurring around him. Trevor was apparently still attempting to convince clients of his non-existent capabilities, while Riley was preoccupied with finalizing the ill-fated details with the German consulting firm. The trap was now perfectly sprung. Monday morning brought utter pandemonium to the Gravura Group offices. Klaus Weber's legal team dispatched termination notices for 3 separate contracts. Marie Dubois demanded the immediate return of all proprietary documents. The Norwegian pharmaceutical company abruptly cancelled their negotiation meeting. Riley's frantic call reached me at 9 a.m. sharp. "What in hell are you doing, Jacob?" he shrieked. "I'm now employed by Lunara Ventures," I calmly explained. "My clients chose to follow me." "You can't do this," he sputtered, his voice laced with desperation. "You have a non-compete agreement." "I verified with my lawyer," I countered, my voice even. "Lunara Ventures is based in London, not Chicago. The non-compete clause does not apply to international companies." The ensuing silence on the other end of the line stretched for an agonizing 30 seconds. "You're annihilating the European division," he finally accused. "No, Riley," I stated firmly. "You annihilated it when you fired me via text message. I'm merely assisting my clients in securing superior service." Tuesday brought a fresh wave of termination notices. By Wednesday, the German consulting firm, now highly suspicious, began asking pointed questions about the true value of acquiring a European division with virtually no clients remaining. Thursday morning, Patricia Wells called again. "Riley is experiencing a complete meltdown," she reported, her voice tired. "The German deal is collapsing. Trevor inexplicably quit yesterday, and the board is demanding immediate explanations." What kind of explanations? I inquired. How we managed to lose 70% of our European revenue in a single week, she sighed. Friday afternoon, Gerard called with an encouraging update. The Norwegian pharmaceutical company wishes to proceed with us, he announced, a note of triumph in his voice. They are offering $15 million over 3 years. Excellent. And Jacob? Yes. I just received a very intriguing phone call from someone named Patricia Wells. She expressed keen interest in discussing employment opportunities with Lunara Ventures. Riley's ill-gotten empire was crumbling, and his most capable employees were wisely abandoning ship before it completely sank. The man who had so arrogantly labeled me pathetic was about to witness firsthand the true meaning of abject failure. The decisive blow landed precisely 3 weeks after Riley's callous dismissal in Paris. Gerard summoned me to his office with news that rendered all the previous turmoil entirely worthwhile. Gravura Group's board, he revealed, a satisfied grin on his face, just voted Riley out as regional director. Apparently, losing $87 million in contracted revenue was deemed a fireable offense. I felt a quiet sense of satisfaction, a profound vindication, yet curiously, no genuine joy. Riley had meticulously brought this catastrophic downfall upon himself through his unbridled arrogance and shockingly poor judgment. There's more, Gerard continued, his voice laced with amusement. Trevor Denton is apparently circulating a fabricated narrative, claiming that you deliberately sabotaged the European division out of sheer spite. Some of your former colleagues are, understandably, beginning to question his version of events. I had fully anticipated this. Riley and Trevor, in their abject failure, desperately required someone to shoulder the blame, and I was the obvious, convenient target. Let me guess, I interjected, a knowing smile playing on my lips. They're alleging I illegally pilfered clients, correct? Precisely, Gerard confirmed. But here's what they conveniently overlook. Patricia Wells has meticulously documented every single incriminating detail. The email forwards, the backdated employment records, the clandestine attempt to sell to the German firm. She is prepared to testify that Riley had been systematically planning your termination for months. The irony was truly exquisite. Riley's methodical, deceitful planning had inadvertently created a comprehensive paper trail that unequivocally proved his actions were calculated and premeditated, rather than a mere reactive response. Had he simply fired me honestly and transparently, he might have retained some of his loyal clients. Instead, his elaborate deception had, to everyone involved, made my departure appear entirely justified and even commendable. What transpires now? I asked, looking towards the future. Patricia commences with us next month as European Operations Manager, Gerard announced with a genuine smile. Klaus Weber is actively recommending us to 2 additional prominent companies in Munich, and the Norwegian pharmaceutical deal is expanding to include their sister company in Oslo. Riley's petty text message from Paris had, in a stunning reversal of fortune, cost him absolutely everything. His prestigious job, his professional reputation, and the thriving business division he had so brazenly attempted to steal. Meanwhile, Lunara Ventures had, thanks to his monumental blunder, secured a formidable foothold in the lucrative American market, potentially worth over $100 million in future revenue. Justice had been served, quietly, professionally, and utterly completely. 6 months later, I was engrossed in reviewing quarterly reports in my comfortable London office when Catherine called from Chicago. "You'll never guess who I spotted at the grocery store yesterday," she exclaimed, a hint of surprise in her voice. "Riley," I ventured. "He was bagging groceries at the supermarket near our old apartment," she confirmed, her voice tinged with a strange mix of pity and disbelief. "He looked absolutely dreadful." I felt no satisfaction from Riley's spectacular downfall. The act of destroying someone's career, even when they unequivocally deserve it, brings no lasting sense of peace or triumph. However, I had undeniably learned invaluable lessons about the profound importance of loyalty, the critical significance of timing, and the fundamental necessity of treating all individuals with basic, inherent respect. Lunara Ventures had, in the intervening months, far surpassed all initial expectations. We had successfully secured 14 major American clients and established new, thriving offices in both Boston and Seattle. The Norwegian pharmaceutical contract had blossomed into a robust partnership that now spanned 5 different countries. Most importantly, I had finally discovered a company that unequivocally prioritized genuine competence over petty office politics. Gerard consistently treated me as a respected, equal partner, never as a perceived threat to his own authority. Our triumphs were genuinely shared successes, not a ruthless zero-sum competition. Catherine joined me in London the following spring. We purchased a charming house in Hampstead, a picturesque neighborhood, and began discussing the joyous prospect of starting a family. For the first time in many years, I felt a profound sense of building something enduring and meaningful, rather than merely surviving the self-serving ambitions of others. The Roland Garros tournament returned to Paris in June, a familiar annual spectacle. Gerard, with a knowing smile, again provided me with tickets, but this time I watched the matches from a luxurious corporate hospitality suite that Lunara Ventures had proudly acquired. Rafael Nadal, the enduring champion, claimed his 14th French Open title that memorable day. As he hoisted the gleaming trophy high above his head, I reflected on the profound and transformative shifts my life had undergone since the previous year. Sometimes, the absolute worst thing that unexpectedly befalls you ultimately proves to be the very best thing that could have ever happened. Riley's contemptuous text message, though never his intention, had paradoxically set me truly free. I never expressed my gratitude to him for it, but perhaps, in hindsight, I truly should have.